very glad to have Danielle with us. Danielle Arti, hello. Um, Good morning. Thanks for joining us. You're a very active trade unionist, a Marxist, member of the FSU union in France, a member of ATTAC, the Anti-Globalization Network, Jewish French Union for Peace, etc., etc. You're a member of everything. Thank you for joining us. So, have you voted already?
Not yet. I will do it just after.
Great. So, can you tell us a little bit? I mean, for us, for the left here, it's mainly Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who we're watching very closely, who's currently on about 16% in the last polls that we've seen, and he's very famous for his late surges, where he kind of picks up a lot of votes in the last couple of days. He's currently third to Marine Le Pen, who's on 21%, and Emmanuel Macron, the president, is on 26.5% roughly. What do you think his chances are of maybe making it to the second round?
Well, it is a good surprise that it could have a chance, because the recently tendencies of the poll are better, and it was a surprise that Macron planned his campaign very late. He was very self-confident and hoping that as a president of European Union, as a leader in the Ukrainian war, he could be the atmosphere could facilitate that. And he began its campaign very late in a right-wing way, very offensive, attacking teachers, saying he will attack the pension limit age from 62 to 65, and asking students to pay much more to go to university.
Real vote winners, though, huh? I mean, that's a bit strange to go with a program like that into an election.
Very strange. We could think about a kind of isolation and disconnection with the real people. And Mélenchon began his campaign much longer before, and he was 11% for a long time, and now is really with the curve increasing to 17, as you said. But at the same time, Marine Le Pen also increased hope, and now, well, it's a good thing that he'll, because the election appeared as already done. We will have this time the same than before, Marine Le Pen against Macron. And because it's increasing, it gives interest for a lot of people. Even around me, you can. I was really surprised when I joined the campaign recently in my neighborhood to see that there are almost 200 people in my local area sticking posters. The last day there were 50, just last Friday, yesterday, 2 days ago. And all this hope is giving energy and making in the left a lot of hope, and when people think they need to be useful in their vote. And so many people hate Macron and his so violent social attacks, and in the left, or they want to be present in the second round. So because in French election, it will be the first round, and after the two best candidates will be fighting in 2 weeks, finally. So it could be, and I can speak about a good energy in the campaign now.
A bit late, maybe, but maybe it's enough. I mean, we had the Corbyn hope, which was cruelly crushed, but hopefully it's not going to be like this for you. But there are a lot of other left wingers standing. Is that a problem? Are they, do they getting enough votes to maybe stop Mélenchon and Mélenchon, sorry, and why isn't there more unity there on the left?
Yes, it's a problem we face since several years, and it was intended that we would have. So we have in the left 6 candidates, 2 are from Trotskyist organizations, one called Worker Struggle is always present and always alone, and the other one, New Anti-Capitalist Party, which is candidate Philippe Poutou and Olivier Besancenot, perhaps you hear about him, that is always present and always alone, but more open. So we hoped they could understand the re-emergence of this left reformism of Mélenchon, and could understand that it's interesting to be involved in a broader movement. But they didn't, so they will be present, and both of them will be around 1%. You have the Socialist Party, which it is normal they are present, but it is so incredible to see they could win 2% in the election. So we see from them a big crisis, and also there is a green candidate that never succeeds to have a big dynamic. Is around 6%, and is speaking about ecology, but not really good to defend the workers' right and fight poverty. So it was attended also. He will be present. And the last one, the Communist Party, that was supporting Mélenchon, and even they were united 2 presidential elections before. The last one they was just supporting, and this time they decide they want to be present, I think, because we have also parliament elections in 2 months that are following, and they want to exist, to have deputies, MP. So and they make a quite good campaign, giving to them something like 4%, and very populist, demagogic kind of patriotism, that, and they are so much for nuclear power plant.
Yeah.
So very different from the ecologists. So they are here, and so it give a landscape of division that is really worrying. Mélenchon was conscious about that, and this time he made a new organization called Popular Union to demonstrate to the people this desire of union that they don't succeed to find at the top. And they made this time a parliament for Popular Union with nice activists like the old president of APAC, the globalization movement, that are present to support him. And so he tried to unite, and at the end he succeeded clearly. Last week, where we saw so many calls and texts with many people signing to say, let's think about the situation and vote for Mélenchon.
So what's this organization like? Is it a democratic organization where you have votes and stuff, or is it more like an electoral machine for him?
Really, the second option is quite curious when you arrive inside, because you are really a hand to make work.
Right.
And I have to say that. So I spoke to MP of Popular Unity, and they said they tried after their success 5 years ago. Mélenchon gets 17%. good dynamic, and they tried to encourage people to be active around them all during the years. And it was difficult for them, but it's not their priority. I regret that. I hope time they will evaluate, because we will certainly need to fight. And even Mélenchon say, even if he get the power, people need to be active. So we see a lot of people joining locally and far from us. Several responsible and organization deciding, and Mélenchon was well known to decide with his near team. But in France also we have a good experience of division, and so there is something interesting in the way that I would temperate what I just said. They organized national conference, for example, for the second round. If Mélenchon is not there, what he will call to vote for. And he said there will be consultation, internal vote. So there are elements of discussion. And you can also say that this organization is very open. You can be inside and express different ideas. You have no official recognition of current of part of the organization, but you can do it freely. So
yeah, I hear you. It's interesting. I mean, we have the same issues, obviously, on the British left. It's the same issues on everywhere on the left. But I think the Corbyn experience has shown us that really, unless you give people power and get them involved on a democratic level, it's very difficult to build something. I bring in now Jane Lee, who's hi Jane. You're hi. I think you're in Broadstairs, aren't you? And you're
I am in Broadstairs. Yeah, I was in Marseille last week.
Ah, okay. So you got a lot of French connections. What's your take on Mélenchon? What do you think?
Well, of course, in Marseille, Mélenchon is the only person you see apart from Poutou. In wherever you are in a wealthy district just outside Marseille and Calanque, you see, you might see a Macron poster, but very rarely. And as for Zemmour, there are occasionally them, but I've never seen one that hasn't been defaced. So it's
the right winger, isn't he? The really right winger.
Also in France, as well as before every election, there's quite a lot of public activity in the street, manif, demonstrations for various things. It's in Paris particularly. I've been in Paris 3 times since September, and in Marseille as well. But in Marseille, I think the best demonstration of all was held when they were totally silent and the Canebière was empty, and they emptied out the center of the city. Nobody came. When Macron came to the town, it was a manif of silence, and it was eerie. 3 days of nobody in the streets except hundreds of police. And so, you could see when you around, if you were sitting, for instance, if you were there at Noailles, which is very much an Arab and African district in Marseille, you could see into the Canebière, you could see a great manif only of the power of the state in the armed policemen. And that was all that greeted Macron. So, they know how to do the theater bit in Marseille, that's for sure. Of course, there is a split in, as you were saying earlier, the split in the left is visible in Marseille very much, and is important. I think and Poutou is quite popular there. I think his 2% might come a lot from that area, but of course that's the old Ligue des communistes révolutionnaires, isn't it? It was it's a party that's been around since about 2001 or two, that that has become the anti-capitalist party. I think that the split in the left is very deep in France, and I think is more profoundly understood, I think, than the split in the left in Britain. I think, for instance, that there are similar things like the Nord and the Pas de Calais, and particularly Nord, the whole area of France, which is Flanders, around Lille, which was a communist stronghold, has, like the Red Wall, has fallen to Le Pen, and Le Pen has got also Occitanie, which is the southwest, which is agrarian. So it's like that old sort of classical Marxist or Engels thing of bringing the industrial worker and the farmer together. So Le Pen is has a stronghold in left-wing areas, or previously left-wing areas. But on the other hand, I think the split in the left has to do with populism, with the yellow jackets and the things that are going on, and the saving the ecological the climate crisis and all the rest of it, all the things about which people demonstrate all their issues, that populism is something which has, in a sense, eroded the idea of of a working class, which is the vanguard of change, I think, and that this is something which is taken up positively by Mélenchon, as opposed to some of the, like Nathalie Arthaud, the communist candidate, who is still classically, has a classical attitude to the working class. Mélenchon is much more inspired. Well, he's a reader of Chantal Mouffe. He's inspired by Chantal Mouffe, which essentially is Gramsci. It's a different communist or a different socialist history.
Can I ask you something on this? Actually, I think that's very, very interesting. The sort of anti-establishment mood is very strong, isn't it? I've just seen a poll where 55% of French people say they're discontented with the establishment, and 37% say they see themselves as very anti-establishment France. So I'm just a question to you both. How are is Marie Le Pen mopping up much of this? And I can see, Mélenchon has tried to reach out to the Yellow Vests, as you said, and he calls them angry but not fascists, which, I think a lot of people here as well, when we looked at the Yellow Vest, they look like right-wingers, you get that kind of idea.
No, this is the problem. Yeah. This is the problem of populism, is that it is neither right nor left. And this is a problem at all levels of the political struggle at the moment in France. For one thing, you see constantly politicians borrowing each other's clothes. The scandal of Macron coming out with that quote about nos vies, leur vie, our lives, their lives are worth more than all these profits, which was the strap line of Poutu's campaign. But he came out with it in the middle of a scandal about old people's homes in France. So there are things like, the left wing being anti-NATO, but Le Pen being anti-NATO. There are areas where the thing crosses over. There's not a clear line in many of the political arguments, though there are clearer lines, I find, in many of the cultural arguments. So, for instance, Marine Le Pen's attitude to multiculturalism is pretty well known, and descends from her father, no matter what she says. Whereas the attitudes to multiculturalism on the left are more easily discerned, and which is why why Mélenchon particularly does not want to divorce the economic and political arguments from the cultural arguments, because what he considers, as Mouffe does and Gramsci does, is that there is no distinction, that the fight culturally is articulated to the fight economically and politically, that you know we must move together in a movement against the elite, against the establishment. Sorry.
Yes, Daniel, I was going to ask you about this as well. I mean, Marie Le Pen, she kind of gone a bit soft, hasn't she, politically? But
You know, this is a problem. I don't know how you feel about it, but I mean, you know, you are looking at Marine and her politicisms, and then you're looking at the members of her party, who are people you would not have dinner with. You know?
Yes,
I think you have to be careful, and
I hear you, but I think she's trying to pick up, you know, working class worries, doesn't she?
No, she's always been a working class party.
Yeah.
No, this is the thing. I think it's not. One cannot see this in British terms. You know, this has always been a working class party.
Yeah. What do you think,
know,
Daniel,
about working class party?
Yeah. About Marine Le Pen, Daniel, and her connections with. You know,
I just want to answer to the question of somebody writing that you were speaking in Marseille about Mélenchon. Poutou is the candidate of the new anti-capitalist party, and so just to answer, and also I would also be absolutely agree. I agree absolutely with all what you said, especially about the Mélenchon ability to speak about. The power of the working class, and we have to say that Macron main project was to change the pension system, and he didn't succeed after a so huge movement with long massive strikes, self-organization, actions of blocking the economy with the workers. That was very interesting, and the COVID arrived, and so people could think, as the government said, it is because of the COVID that the pension were not challenged, but in fact it is really because there was a huge resistance, and so that is creating the I think some years later the dynamic of Mélenchon. Also, but to answer about Marine Le Pen, you spoke about Zemmour that is appearing, and you cannot imagine how neo-Nazi speech is, like openly calling to massive deportation of Muslims and all power to police in a very violent way. So this disinhibition that was tolerated by the media, and also we have to say that in France you have a billionaire called Bolloré that both have a real strategy to buy medias. So one TV, C News, and one important radio, Europe 1, and in that medias they are so oftenly banalizing the racism and the fake news in a high way. So in front of that, Marine Le Pen appears suddenly like softer, and she knows that the only way she really changed from her father is tactic, and it's she don't speak against Jewish, even if they don't change.
Yeah, so I'm really sorry. We're really running over time. You both gave us a really good insight, and I hope, I mean, fingers crossed, Mélenchon, if he's gotten through, then we definitely have you both on again next week, and maybe anyway. That was really interesting. Sorry to cut you short, but that was too much stuff in too little time. But thank you both so much.